Well, hello and welcome on into another episode of Around the World in 80 Days. I'm here with Nicholas Abusada. As always, I'm going to let my guest introduce himself and where he studied.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, as Sean mentioned, I'm Nicholas Abusada. I'm a senior at the prestigious University of Iowa. I'm in my final semester of my senior year. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm a history and political science double major. And in the spring of 2024, I studied in Cork, Ireland for 6 months. I'm excited to talk about it here.
Well, let's get right into talking about it. So, Cork, Ireland, what made you want to study for an entire semester in Cork, Ireland? And first, why Ireland, too?
Okay, so first, why Ireland? So I'm not Irish, personally. I don't have any ancestry. But I basically had narrowed it down to two different countries. And those countries were South Korea and Ireland. Very different. But as a history student, there's actually some interesting similarities, but we won't go into that right now.
That's for a different podcast at a different time.
Yes. Hopefully I can get on another one soon. Basically, I was talking through it with my parents, and we decided both for the sake of cost and for the sake of, let's just say, mitigating culture shock, that Ireland was a better choice. And I was actually kind of on the South Korea train for a while because I was very interested in South Korean history. I had just taken a class in the Korean War.
Are you a big K-pop fan?
Not, I mean, I enjoy it. My sister is a huge K-pop fan, a lot more than I am. But I definitely respect the genre. I've listened to some music, but it's more for the history. On my case, that's kind of my niche, however you pronounce that. But yeah, I eventually narrowed it down, and Ireland seemed like a really good pick for Europe for a multitude of reasons. One of the big reasons is I come from a Catholic family. Now, my mom's side, the Catholic family, the European side is Italian, German, and Swedish. So not Irish, but there's kind of a communal Catholic community in Ireland. Is a very culturally Catholic state. So that was one of the big reasons I decided to kind of just see what that part of Europe was like.
So you did it for both a history, but also kind of a familial religious kind of purpose there too, and also it costs less than going to South Korea. After having gone to Ireland, I'm assuming that it is worth it and doing all that, but was it worth it? And you're like, yes, I'm so glad I went to Ireland over South Korea.
100%, and there's a very good reason for that. Because even though one of the big reasons we chose between the two was to mitigate culture shock. I still experienced plenty of culture shock in Ireland, and that is something you just have to be prepared for. I didn't know anyone who came from the U.S. who wasn't experiencing that kind of culture shock. Now, it wasn't extreme. I got used to it pretty quickly. And when I say it, I guess I mean the environment. But, I mean, just right off the bat, and I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, I got sick pretty quickly when I first got there. So it's like coming to Europe, getting that new environment. Body wasn't really familiar with Northern Europe. So, yeah, got a cold almost immediately when I landed. But that was, along with that, of course, there's the, and I'm sure we'll get into that, the pub culture is very different from, downtown Iowa City. And, of course, just the way that and I love the Irish people to death, the way that conversations happen, talking about family. It's a very different paradigm and a really lovely paradigm, and I'm excited to kind of delve deeper into that. So
we will 100% get into more of that later, absolutely. I think it's interesting that you talk about trying to maybe mitigate culture shock, because I think a lot of people, when they study abroad or think about studying abroad, know that it's coming, and they either don't do study abroad because it's going to be so great that, they just don't know what to expect or what might happen to them, or they're like, you know what, let's get it over with. So the fact that you were kind of not necessarily long gaming it with the culture shock, but trying to lessen the effects, I think is an interesting way of going about studying abroad, because a part of studying abroad, at least in my interpretation and many other people's, is like trying to get that culture shock, trying to have that. But I know and there's the good and the bad to it. And I think what you were probably trying to do, and I'm not speaking for you obviously, but like what I think you were trying to do is maybe mitigate some of the bad things that come from that, because there is this loneliness there, this imposter syndromeness that comes to it. I've experienced it myself. So I think that you had a really interesting approach to that. And, you know, you'll have to talk with our classmate Leela, who was on this podcast, great friend of the show, about what South Korea could have been like. But the other thing I think that's interesting you talked about, too, is the getting sick immediately. So I think, you know, that's probably a British Isles type thing, but getting sick is also, and for everyone listening, a part of the study abroad experience. Everyone has their one sickness story of one illness or thing that just destroyed them. When I was in Chile, I had a sinus infection that lasted a month.
That's not fun.
Because the air there is super dry too, and I'm just not used to living in that kind of climate, my nose was just bleeding. And I'm not like a nosebleeder.
Gosh.
You know how some people have like really get bloody noses all the time?
Yeah, no, I've been there.
I'm not a nosebleeder, but my nose was just, I was about ready to cut that thing off. Like I'm halfway through my time. This sinus infection isn't going away. Like I need it to be gone. And then when I was studying in Paris, I got like top 5 worst sick I'd ever been in my life. I came back from Amsterdam and I called my mom and I was like, I don't usually play this card. I'm 20 years old. And I'm like, Mom, please, I'm dying over here. You're 7 hours away in a whole continent, but like I need you. So yeah, the getting sick is a part of the study abroad experience. Hopefully in your 6 months, you didn't have like a month-long sinus infection or a nose that wouldn't stop bleeding or anything, but the being sick is definitely a part of it.
No, for sure. Thankfully not. It was mostly just like the common cold kind of stuff. And it was funny going to the pharmacy, the quick trip pharmacy, and of course there's the stereotype, you know, about, not stereotype, I shouldn't say, trend about European healthcare being very free and accessible, and it was. I mean, I didn't need to show any prescription or anything to go to the store. Granted, it wasn't anything major, because it was just like cold medicine. But they were actually kind of particular. They had to like ask me if I was genuinely sick before I got like I think they're called, I'm not sure what the medical term is, but this what is in anti-congestion medicine to like things that are in NyQuil, Dayquil, and they weren't called that. I didn't see those brands there, which was kind of interesting. I had to operate like that, but. I just want to say, you mentioned something about the call home to mom, and like getting sick immediately, that is also, and I'm sure you agree with this, that's also a very common part of the study abroad rite of passage, is the call home to mom, because there's going to be that one day where you hit a kind of a low, and you're going to need some familiar sport. You're going to need to fall back on your laurels, so to speak.
Well, I was going to ask you that maybe a little bit later, but we can do that right now. Man, this is starting off so depressingly, isn't it?
We'll get to the fun stuff later.
We will get to the fun stuff. But yeah, what was because you said you were there for 6 months. What was or a semester?
Maybe I should specify. Probably 5 months is more accurate, because it was, I think it ended in May.
So a 5-month period, a semester, a prolonged semester-ish. What was your, like, call home to mom moment, or did you have just this kind of period where it was really rough for you? Because again, as someone who's studied abroad for an entire semester before, like you're not immune to it. You have days where it's going to hit you.
Yeah, so I made kind of an academic mistake, I guess you could call it, and we'll get more into the academics, I'm sure, soon, but I made a pretty silly mistake where I assumed the drop date for classes was equivalent to the University of Iowa's. I don't know what compelled me to think that. I was 20. This was 2 years ago, so obviously I've grown a lot in these last 2 years. All joking aside, I assumed I was taking a class. I was taking one more extra class than I needed, and I saw there was this one class, and it just had an essay, and I didn't want to do it, and I was thinking, you know what? I can actually drop this class. So I went to go drop the class, and they told me the drop date was in February, and this was in, I think, March, which is, I think, when University of Iowa's, like, final withdrawal class date is usually in a spring semester. So I kind of went into panic mode because I had done this after the deadline for that essay. So yeah, so anyone listening to this was a very poorly minded mistake. And for those that know me, this might actually be a revelation, and I'm kind of telling on myself here. But basically, this led into a bit of a downward spiral. I was kind of struggling to find a way to get back my points. They're very much not as lenient about an extension as they are here at University of Iowa. And, oh my gosh, I haven't even mentioned the name of the college yet. I apologize. The college I was going to in the program I was with, the Iowa Regents in Ireland. The college is called University College Cork, otherwise known as UCC. I'm wearing their branding right now.
He's repping it. He's repping it.
I
It's
am.
amazing. Just imagine it for yourself, and we'll get Nicholas on some things later on where you guys can see the glory of this thing. It's beautiful.
It's a fantastic quarter zip. I recommend it. But yeah, at UCC, they don't have the same lenient policy towards extensions. You have to get a waiver, and it has to go through departments. It's very official. And so, yeah, there was this time I was just struggling with how am I going to climb out of this situation I've foolishly gotten myself into. And so I called home to Mom, asking for that support, because I was proud of myself, because I didn't do this initially. I didn't call home and say, I need to go home, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, of course, getting homesick. I was homesick multiple times, but I was proud of myself because I never admitted it until I was in this kind of point of despair, so to speak. And yeah, got some support from Mom and Dad. Thankfully, it all worked out. The Irish professors were very kind and understanding to me, and it actually, surprisingly enough, allowed me to have an extension without even points taken off. So they were very generous and understanding to my situation, and I'm very thankful for them for that. So,
Well, that's very kind of them, and you were using your resources, and I think that that's an important lesson to take too, because you are actually not the first person who has talked about missing deadlines at their college of exchange for certain things. And it's so important that you look at the university that you're staying at's
100%.
calendar, because Iowa only applies in name.
Mm-hmm.
About 75% of the programs that you'll go on, Iowa only applies in name, especially for semester. Like, you have to be on top of what your actual university's policies are. And if not, obviously we have resources to help you here on this end. But then again, there's only so much we can do too. You have to really be proactive with yourself. So I think you gave us a good lesson here, and you reinforced another lesson that we had. But I want you to talk about your program and being at University College Cork. What were you doing? What was it like? You said this was an Iowa Regents program, so I'm assuming this was not like a direct exchange, but were you going with a cohort of other Iowa students, or was it just you and then there were other exchange students who you were with? How did this program work?
So I'll be completely honest with you. The specifics of it are a bit lost on me. I'm fairly certain the program is a sort of exchange. I believe that's what they called it. There was a few of us. There was a cohort of University of Iowa students going over, and from what I understand, UCC and U Iowa have a lot of good links. So this wasn't just a kind of box standard study abroad experience. I apologize for not actually having the lingo at the top of my head, but that's kind of if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can link to the program things too, but it was like an Iowa sanctioned direct exchange almost, if you will.
Correct, yeah.
Because you were not through a third party. You were through the
That's
University of
right.
Iowa directly exchanging into this university. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll put information on the description to this, so that's okay that
Thank you,
you didn't
yeah.
know.
It's a little embarrassing, I'm sorry.
That is okay. And you have studied abroad a lot less recently than some of the other people who were on here. So
it was 2 years ago.
It was a little more fresh for some other people, so you're okay with that. But talk about your classes. What classes were you taking? And did you take any Irish classes while you were there?
Okay, yeah. So my plan was that I wanted to graduate in 2025. And even though it's not exactly what I had in mind, I'm still doing that. So thankfully, thank you. What I had in mind was to basically continue my degrees. So at that time, I had declared the double major in poli-sci and history. And I basically wanted to just continue that. And
So you weren't, sorry to interrupt,
Go
but
for
you
it.
were like going specific, or you said you were going to continue your majors and continue on your track. You weren't just kind of like gen ed farming with this one. You were going with a purpose to continue on with it.
100%.
Correct? Okay.
And I got lucky because thankfully the transfer credits lined up really well. And yeah, I got to do the correct amount of history and the correct amount of political science, and then I took that extra class, which is ultimately led to the comedy of errors we just got done talking about. But no, they were lovely classes. In the end, I think I would agree that they were all lovely classes. One of them was an archaeology class, and I'm not an archaeology major, but it kind of fit in with history. It was basically it was a history of Cork. Through a tour of the city, we'd always go on walks around the city to spots and talk about their historical significance. That was a particular one I enjoyed. And I can get more into the specific classes if you'd like, but all in all, the lining up and the parallels of the classes were really, really nice and pretty seamless fit.
So were you taught in these classes by UCC like Irish professors? Were you with students from your cohort, or was it just you and you were among a bunch of Irish students? Because for some programs, like, you're dropped in the middle of whatever university is thing and it's just you. Or if you're myself, for example, when I was in Chile, I was at a Chilean university being taught by Chilean professors, but it was only my cohort. It was only my 23-ish other American students in our classes. So what were yours like?
So just to answer the question about the cohort, we weren't like organized together in terms of classes. It was more so just departure. And
you happened to all be coming from Iowa.
Yeah, and they prepared us all in a group, like, for the preliminary stuff. But this is one thing I actually do remember pretty clearly, is that we were unlike the Irish students going to this school. And this applied to the EU students who were coming from outside Ireland as well. But the EU students, and I think they had a whole different kind of program. I'm not 100% sure I remember what it was called. But the EU students, as well as the American and I guess you could say other countries' students that were coming to UCC, they got course selection, which, believe it or not, is not what the Irish students usually do. They actually have a set program, almost like they're back in high school, so to speak, or secondary school, as they might call it. So we got kind of this freedom of choice that was not offered to the regular Irish student. So yeah, I guess you could say we were kind of dropped in the middle of it. Like, for example, some courses were only for freshmen, but that didn't apply to study abroad. So that was kind of cool. We got a kind of a wealth of freedom in that aspect.
So you got to pick what you wanted, and then you got dropped into these classes of Irish students who were tracked, or were you with other international EU or non-EU students, or a mix of all of them?
It was a mix of all of them. So like we got to be with the Irish students, and the study abroad students were there too. So it was kind of a nice hodgepodge. Yeah, I made some friends in classes. Most of my friends that I made in classes were native Irish. Funny enough, most of my friends I hung out with more often were actually fellow study abroad students, either, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but either from the U.S. or from other places in Europe. So, yeah.
Well, that brings me to just kind of a fun question of mine that I have here. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, he studied in Japan for a semester, and one of the people in his complex was an Uzbek or of Uzbek descent. Did you have anyone from any like crazy fun nationalities that was also an international student who were in your classes?
Yes, I had a good friend in our little friend group. We had and I'm going to give them a shout out right now because they're good friends of mine, and I miss them dearly.
You're going to send them this episode.
I'm going to send them
out.
this episode.
Absolutely.
So this is to you guys. We have a group. We called ourselves UCC's Hottest and Greatest. Pretty great
nice.
name. I didn't come up with the name, unfortunately. I'm not the genius behind that. They know who they are. But one of the members of the group, she was from Argentina. Actually, I think two of them. They were very fun, very great people. It was nice to get an insight on guess Argentinian life is, because I've never been to South America. You mentioned you've been to Chile, and my parents had a trip to Peru. I'd love to go someday, but that was kind of my first exposure to, I guess you could call it, South American culture. They were great, and I miss them dearly. Another, not part of that group, but someone I met in the class, or actually, no, I met him at my dorm, or I guess they called it like residency or housing. They had different words for things. He was Chinese, but not Han. He was, I think, Hui, which is a ethnic minority from China. They have like 5 major ethnicities in China, and that was a really interesting cultural experience.
Did he speak Mandarin or a different language?
I think he spoke both Mandarin, and I believe there is a distinct language. And what was really interesting about meeting him, I believe his name is Daniel. It's been too long since I've contacted him, and I should contact him again. But what was interesting is I had never met a Chinese Muslim before, and that was a really interesting perspective to get his world perspective on life and what his journey was to get to Ireland. And I won't be going into that because it's very personal for him. But just in general, it was very nice to hear and meet someone like that.
That's really curious, and that's really interesting. And I think that shows the beauty of what can happen when you're studying abroad and doing these things, is you meet such interesting, amazing people. Shout outs to your people from Argentina, by the way. I've been to Argentina. I've not been to Buenos Aires. I've been to Western Argentina. It was beautiful out there. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, like those international friend groups are just so fun, and just really getting to commune and just see our humanity in different ways. I really like that. You touched on this real quick. You said you lived in a dorm and a residency.
Yes.
You were not in a host family, correct?
No, I was not.
Okay.
This was they recommended the housing. I think the program actually it offered the option, like, if I recall correctly, that they would help you be placed in a residency. So I got to go to this place called the Broga House, formerly known as the Nido Broga House, but I believe that company has been bought. But it was a very good kind of housing. It was kind of I don't know how you'd explain it. There's a proper word for it, but pod housing, I think they call it like a little studio room with a bathroom, and then there was no kitchen or fridge in the room itself, but there was a common room.
Okay.
And by the way, I just want to quickly shout out so they don't get mad at me. I didn't even mention that a big part of my friend group were Finnish. So shout out the Finns. Love them. They were a core part of the group, and yeah, they're wonderful. And I'm sure we'll be talking more about them. One of them, I'll just shout him out by name, Elias. He's great. I believe he was part Swedish as well, which was really cool.
Shout outs to our dogs from Finland.
Amen.
Did you have any roommates when you were in your residency?
Indeed, I did. They were a mix between people from the U.S. And I believe
from the U.S. but not from Iowa, or
correct.
From...
There was I believe one was from Chicago. I think, if I recall correctly, she was the only other one from America, if I recall correct. There was one from France. There was one from Denmark, and then one from Finland. I believe two from Finland. Yes, 2 from Finland, and one of those people from Finland was part of our group as well. So yeah, it was they were a good group. I didn't spend as much time with them as I might have liked. That was kind of more relegated to the friend group, but it takes priority.
Well, hopefully us doing this and shouting them out can give you a good opportunity to reconnect after all this time.
I would love that, and maybe I can send this podcast out to them if I can find it. Find that old group chat in WhatsApp.
Nicholas is sending all his love. I've never met y'all. I'm sending all my love. So I'm going to take us past school now. You had said that you had a class that was basically just like going around, walking around Cork and just having fun in Cork. Talk to me about living in Ireland and being in Cork. What was that like for you?
Oh, I miss it dearly. Dear Sean, I miss it dearly. I just said dear twice. That was supposed to sound eloquent.
Nicholas.
That was supposed to sound so much more eloquent, and I failed. Yeah, it was great. Cork is a really interesting city. It's the second largest, next to Dublin. So there's actually kind of a interesting culture there, where they consider themselves the true capital of Ireland, which is interesting. I had never known this, and so it's kind of known as like the rebel city, or the rebel county, because Cork is also a county, which is kind of their version of like a state, because they have provinces. There's 4 provinces of Ireland. And then there's several counties.
So it's a New York kind of situation. It's named
Yeah.
after the province that it's in.
Yes. So County Cork, and then the capital is the city of Cork. So Cork is wonderful. It's the southernmost major city of the island. It's, if you look at it on a map, it's looks like it's almost falling off the island. It's not like a sub island or anything like that. It is firmly part of it. But yeah, it was really good. You weren't too far away from the sea. There was a coastal town I really enjoyed, like Cove. It was called Cove, spelled Cobh.
Oh wow, okay.
So that's an Irish word.
I was gonna say, if it's named Cove, how apt.
Yeah. That's another thing. The Irish language is very interesting. I unfortunately didn't take a class in it. I probably would not have been fluent in it even if I did. It's very different from the languages we're taught in America, like English or Spanish or even French. It's very different, of course, because it's not a Latin or Germanic language at all. It's its own thing. But it was really interesting to see that. Yeah, shout out to Cove. It's a coastal city of County Cork. The capital, I guess you could call it both capitals of Ireland, Dublin and Cork. They both have coastal city counterparts. And Dublin's is blanking on me right now. It starts with an H.
Well, if you come back to it, just
Yeah,
shout it out.
It's a wonderful city. I visited the coastal cities are really kind of nice because it's where all the boats are. I went on a boat tour there. Yeah, gosh, I can't believe it's being lost on me. It's the coastal city counterpart of Dublin. That's the most important thing.
So being in Cork, because you went during a spring semester too, hopefully the weather wasn't too terrible, because I would love to be on the British Isles, any of the Isles, in the fall. I think being on them in the fall would be beautiful. But was it pretty manageable in the winter and the spring semester, or were you just sitting there half the time being up to your kneecaps in rain and clouds?
So what you've heard about the British Isles is true. It rains a lot, and it's not like pleasant, frolicking through the puddles kind of rain. It's kind of, I don't want to speak ill of it. I mean, lovely country. Love Ireland to death. But the rain was not great.
But
The rain was not great. But there was some really nice times where it got kind of like misty, and it was very ethereal, and I could feel kind of a connection. And I'm not saying that like to be funny. Like, I generally felt like a kind of, it was almost like a spiritual experience sometimes. There was a trip at the beginning of the semester where we went to, I believe it was, if you might have heard of it, the Ring of Kerry.
I think that sounds familiar.
We went on, I believe it's northwestern Ireland. Not on the coast or anything, but it's kind of top left quadrant, you might call it. And we went to this old like monastery area around a lake. And it got really misty, and it was really cool. Like, there was this very kind of quiet, very peaceful, and there was like a very interesting, and I know I just said there wasn't like a frolicking kind of rain, but this was kind of a very gentle rain. And I kind of just stood there in the rain for like 10 minutes. Just really, I mean, no pun intended, soaking it all in. But yeah, that was a great experience. I took a banger picture too of a tree.
I was gonna say, you're gonna have to show me the picture afterwards, because I need to see this.
Oh gosh, it's so cool.
Very movie-esque.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to go back. So I've been to England and Wales. I've not been to Ireland. I need to go to Ireland very much. But the rain is beautiful only in like those certain moments, because when my dad and we were in Liverpool, and it was like 30 degrees outside and just pouring rain. It was so
You said
bad.
Liverpool?
Yeah.
Yeah, that tracks.
It was so miserable. It was terrible. But the other end of the spectrum was we were in Cardiff in Wales, and Cardiff, it was like misty, and this was during spring break, so this was like mid-ish March. But it was very misty, and there was just like this quiet ambiance to it, and that was a nice contrast. And I was like, this is the kind of rain vibe that I'm going for, not it being 30 minus degrees, and sleeting in Liverpool, because that's terrible. But then my dad and I went back to Liverpool near the end of our trip, and it was sunny, and it was like in the 50s, almost 60, and it was wonderful. But when the rain hits on the British Isles, the rain hits.
Oh yeah.
It is so good.
And you see the distinction, of course. You mentioned Wales as opposed to Liverpool, which is in England. And of course, the distinction there is that Wales is a Celtic state, and Liverpool is in England. So obviously, there's just showing you that the Celtic parts of the British Isles are better, of course. And I'm joking. I had to throw in a little jab because of the British Irish rivalry. So I knew I had to stick that in somewhere. So I thought that was an apt opportunity.
No, that is okay. You had said, you had this little coastal town that you really liked that was near Cork, and you had this coastal town near Dublin that you really liked.
Which was called Hooth, by the way.
Hooth,
Yeah,
okay.
I got the name back.
Okay. And you went up to this other place. Where else in Ireland did you go?
So, yeah, some of my favorite places I went to, Dublin was fantastic for the history, Cork as well, for that matter. But I really, really loved Galway. Galway was amazing. Probably my favorite city in Ireland, to be perfectly honest. I have never experienced, even in the U.S., I've never experienced going to a city before and feeling like I want to retire here. And, that's how I felt about Galway. And it's kind of hard for me to put into words what exactly about it I really enjoyed. Maybe it was the weather. It's Western Ireland, so it's on the coast of the Atlantic, so it's really cool for that reason. Cool, I guess, in both ways. But yeah, I mean, the cathedral there was beautiful with this just beautiful green top. I kind of really liked the culture. The restaurants were really good. Guinness was flowing, of course, wonderful Guinness. Actually, I should mention, Cork has its own kind of Guinness, and it's in rivalry with Dublin. I know this is random, but I have to mention it. So it's because this drink doesn't really exist in the U.S. It's a stout. It's very similar. It's called Beamish, and Beamish.
That's such a British Isles word, by the way.
Yeah, and I think it's an Irish term. I'm pretty sure a name. It could be an anglicized Irish name. That's very possible. Don't hate me if I'm getting that wrong right now. But Beamish is kind of the Cork's cultural, or I guess regional stout, and it's in direct competition with Guinness. And in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this because I went to UCC and lived in Cork long term, but I definitely preferred Beamish over Guinness.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take your word for it, because I had Guinness. I was not in Ireland, of course. I was in Manchester. I had Guinness, and that stuff sucked. I know that that's kind of a divisive take to have, because a lot of people who I've met who aren't like British or anything or Irish, you love it or you hate it. And it was so nasty. I did not like it at all. I'm not a big beer or stout guy as it is, but if I'd be open to trying the other one if I had the chance, because anything could be better than normal Guinness.
No, and I completely agree. But I've heard, and I'm glad you brought this up, but I've heard Guinness in the UK tastes way different than it does in Ireland. And I'll mention, even though I prefer Beamish over Guinness, the best Guinness I had was at the Guinness factory for sure. So straight from the source, probably a reason why it was the best I had. But no, I mean, the stuff in the US, same thing. It's probably worse even than the stuff in the UK. I hate to admit it.
Again, as much as I'm not really a big fan of beer, I think it's a necessary thing to do in my next trip to Ireland.
Yeah.
Is we have to settle the debate.
No, for sure. And I mean, and the stout is a big cultural part of Ireland for sure. And it was my first time drinking any kind of stout. And actually, I should mention, because I was 20, it was my first time drinking out ever, as a college student especially, because that was kind of, it's very different from downtown Iowa City, as I might have mentioned, the pub culture versus the bar culture. But yeah, going to the pubs and the clubs in Ireland was kind of my first foray into I guess you would call it nightlife.
And what was the pub culture like specifically? Because I think that's pretty much the first thing everybody thinks about with Ireland. To an extent, maybe the UK, and I want to quit dragging in the UK to all of this, but
it's part of the Irish experience. You got
it's part of the Irish experience, and I think just to give context, but like it's the first thing we think about, you know, is the pub culture. So what was the pub culture like?
It's a great question. Pub culture was very homey. If I had to call it anything, very homey. Like it felt like you were walking into somebody's house, like, and it was very welcoming. You didn't really feel. I feel like, and maybe this is just me personally, but I feel like whenever you enter a bar in the U.S., no matter where you are, there's kind of this, you know, keep to yourself kind of mentality, especially if you're alone. But I could go to any pub, sit down at the bar of the pub, and I could strike up a conversation with, you know, an older Irish gentleman, and it would be perfectly, or the bartender, and it would be perfectly natural. I'm not saying that can't happen here in the U.S. I'm sure it happens every day, but I don't know. There's just this almost, it's hard to distinct.
Like the communalness of it, you could feel it?
Yes, 100% yes. Yeah, and there's that joke, of course, it's like people joke about how a lot of the pubs in the UK or Ireland or all over Europe, some of them are older than the US itself, which is kind of funny. It's like, yeah, my pub is older than your country. But then, you know, don't tell them that a lot of their countries are also technically younger than the US. I mean, like Germany, but, you know.
We'll keep that on the DL.
We'll keep that on the DL. But yeah.
Not to interrupt, I was just going to kind of continue with that. It's very homey and like the drink and the conversation. But what about the food? What was the food like? Pub food and just even Irish food specifically.
Okay, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have to say, better than food you get in Britain. But this is not. You have to keep in mind, Ireland is not like Italy. It's not like Spain. It's not a country that's super well known for the cuisine, and not that it doesn't have cuisine. It does, and actually
not gastronomically famous
for sure. And I definitely think the drink. The stout is a much more cultural
staple. It's like, yeah.
In terms of, I don't know if consumption's the right word. I didn't want to see a drink is not really a cuisine.
It's the main attraction.
Yeah. And I will say, drinking a Guinness is like a meal, or drinking a Beamish is like a meal. I should say.
There's a lot of calories.
A lot of calories, indeed. So you gotta be careful when you finish a dark beer, a stout. You feel pretty full. So, in a sense, it is kind of a meal. So maybe I'll just go ahead and call it a cuisine. Of course, that's not the only thing. They have. It's a coastal country, so they have a lot of fish, really delicious fish. Fish and chips is common there, despite being more associated with their friends across the sea, or the channel, I should say. And yeah, I mean, I had some really, really delicious kind of crab meat burgers. Kebabs are common as well, thanks to the cultural diffusion from India and Pakistan, and Arabic countries as well. So there's a lot of kebabs that are there as well, and it's very common post-bar food.
Dude, I would tell you to interject that like midnight doner kebab place that you find randomly that's like open and you're like, why is this here? And it saves your life after such a hard night. Oh my gosh, I miss having those so much. I'm so shocked that we don't have them more here, because it's objectively such an awesome food and it's so easy, and like I have never seen one that has been like closed for the night. I was in Paris, and my friend and I, we were trying to get back someplace, but the metro was closing. It was really late. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We're in this like neighborhood. We're trying to walk back to our apartment place, and there's just this doner kebab place that's open in the middle of this neighborhood at 1 a.m. And they were like, "You guys want some food?" I said, yes. And then, just sat in there and ate it. And I've had that wherever I've gone. And so that huge dubs for that. I miss that.
It's a European staple.
I miss that so much.
Yeah. No, I miss it too. I mean, it's not the same. You can go over to Saj's Grill or George's, and I'm not trying to speak any bad on our local Iowa City cuisine, but it's just not the same,
Different level of game here.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean... Sorry, I lost my train of thought here.
Food. We were talking about food.
Yes. For the kebab place, there was this one place that was literally not even a minute walk away from my dorm. So that was dangerous. that was really dangerous. I'll just say.
They're like, hey, yo, Nick is coming down. Get everything
Yup,
ready.
Yep. Yep. So I mean, like that would often be my dinner, even if that dinner took place at 2 a.m. But yeah, in terms of cuisine, native Irish cuisine, I did have the full Irish breakfast, which is kind of a riff off the full English breakfast, and they had the black pudding I tried for the first time, which was actually quite good. I wasn't expecting it. I don't like puddings most often, and I'm assuming I liked this one because it's not like gelatinous pudding, which I'm not a fan of personally. I know it's a hot take.
Oh, don't worry. I'm with my family when they listen to this. I'm going to tell y'all right now what I've been telling y'all my whole life. I don't like pudding. Stop
Amen.
serving me pudding.
Thank you.
Because every time they'll have like pudding for dessert or they'll put pudding in something, they'll offer it to
I
me.
can't stand it.
And I'm like, I can't with pudding.
It's so
my
bad.
entire life, I can't with pudding.
We're going to get so much hate for this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But you know what? We can live with that. I'm glad I found another person who doesn't like
No,
pudding
me
like
too.
I do. So,
But,
ugh.
yeah, I mean, Irish black pudding, it's hard to describe. It's harder. I'm not even sure I mean,
Is it like a paste almost?
not really. It's really hard to describe. I mean, it is the shape of a pudding for sure, but it's like, have you ever had a Spanish omelet?
Yeah.
It's kind of that texture.
Okay.
Different taste, but pretty good. And then of course they had the sausages and the eggs. I think it really was the pudding and the bacon is what made it the Irish breakfast as opposed to the English.
Do they have a whole bunch of beans on it too?
For sure, beans on toast.
How was the beans? Because this is another thing my family gets mad at me at. Is when I was in the UK with my dad, you know, we were having the English breakfast. You know, we were being Americans. You had
Yes.
to do it, and the beans were amazing. I don't know
Yes.
who was like hating on beans or told me to hate on beans before I went there. I was eating beans like crazy because the recipe, they were cooked in, I'm pretty sure it was ketchup or not ketchup, like molasses-y kind of ketchup-y kind of thing
Yeah.
with some brown sugar in there.
Oh yeah.
Oh my word. I loved it. I would go back
For
to eating
sure.
beans like that all the
No,
time.
yeah. I'm gonna assume the same is true for the British, but from my experience, Irish beans super tasty. Don't knock them till you try them. I'm not a huge bean eater in the U.S. unless they're like baked beans, and that's kind of like a Thanksgiving staple. Yeah, no, I mean this is a long conversation on food. I hope we haven't taken too much time away, but
No.
that no, sorry. I don't know why I said that. Yeah, no, love the Irish breakfast. Love the Irish food scene. It was good.
Well, I mean, you don't have to apologize for talking about food for so long because I love food. I'm pretty sure I've said this on every episode at this point. Like, I love food. We got to talk about food. But also, it goes to show, too, that, like, you're not just going to sit there for 5 months and not eat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to
I think that's fatal.
yeah. I've heard. We need to check sources
Yeah, I
on
might
that.
need to try it out.
But like you're not gonna not eat, and eventually you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone because going back to what you said about NyQuil or DayQuil not having those brands, like you're not gonna have your comfort brands in Ireland because why would they have them? They're Irish. They're not American. Now they're gonna have Coca-Cola. Everyone's gonna have Coca-Cola.
You gotta have the. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you gotta have the European Fanta.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, dude, Nicholas, this is crazy. Yes. What was your favorite flavor? Or
The standard, I think the original, because it's so much better than the stuff I tried it after I got back, and I wanted to not finish it.
so I'll tell you this. The orange flavor, at first I hated it, but then it kind of grew on me.
Exactly.
It kind of grew on me. And the only reason I hated it is because, Sunny D, the orange juice,
Yep.
it tasted like carbonated Sunny D. I don't like Sunny D, but it kind of grew on me as I continue to live in Europe and do, multiple trips over there. But the one that I love the most is the lemon flavored one.
I don't think I've actually tried that.
Oh my gosh. If you ever go back, you got to have the lemon one because anyone who knows me from my study abroad experiences will tell you I was down in lemon ones like crazy. I don't know
That's
why.
awesome.
I don't know why we have to have pineapple as our yellow flavored here. I hate pineapple. Can we please get the lemon one because it's so good. But yes, putting people on game about the European Fanta, absolutely.
You gotta try it. I mean, and of course, European Coke is just Mexican Coke. That's what we call it. If I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure when you get a Coca-Cola, it's pretty much the same thing as getting a Mexican Coke in the U.S., as they call it, which is literally just bottled Coke and made
Real cane sugar.
real cane sugar, not the original recipe, but cane sugar. It's really good.
Yeah, the European soda game. Oh, did you ever have Sprite when you were over there?
Yeah.
Okay, this is another thing that I found out too, is the Sprite, and you'll see it on the packaging, it's not lemon lime, it's lime lemon.
Yes, that's right.
Because I drank it the first time, and I was like, this tastes limier than I remember. And I was like, oh, maybe it's the bottle. But then I had another one, and I was like, oh, this is limier than I remember. Did you have that too?
Yes, and I thought it was like one of those like Mandela effect things, because I was like, wait, has it always been lime lemon? But no, I mean, yeah, it was definitely more limey. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely been more limey, which was interesting. I don't think it was necessarily bad. I feel like the stuff here tastes a lot more like sparkling lemonade to an extent.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad. Although I gotta start laying off the sodas.
I had for lunch today, I had Minute Maid lemonade and Sprite mixed together, so I can't say anything
Classic.
about that. But the limey flavor, like the lime dominant flavor, was definitely a breath of interesting fresh air. I think I like both equally.
Yeah.
But it was nice to have both of them. So that was the food game. That was the food talk. I'm trying to keep this about you, but you're exciting me.
I
with
love this conversation.
all of these things, because it's like, yes, someone else knows. They finally understand.
Yeah.
So I have a cousin, and she's going to be studying studying abroad in Limerick this upcoming spring, and it's going to be her first time being abroad for a very long time. First time in Ireland, and obviously Limerick is not Cork, but you know of the whole Ireland game.
Yeah.
So for her, because I'm gonna send it to her, but like also just for people in general, what are some advice and some things that you would have for people going to Ireland or studying in Ireland, or just, that they should know, or anything like that, besides don't talk about the Troubles? We're not gonna get into that. You can do your own stuff on that, but
yeah, I mean, for sure you got to do your research about cultural sensitivity. That's actually really, I'm glad you brought that up. I won't go too far into that either, but I mean, there's a lot of memes we might talk about in the U.S. You may know what we're discussing, but you got to really be sensitive about that kind of thing, because you have to remember that event ended in pretty recent history. But anyway, in terms of Limerick, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to go to Limerick. We passed through it on our way back, and that brings me to another point, which is the buses and the trains in Ireland are amazing. They are amazing. Super cheap, super accessible. I could get to Cork to Dublin, they're literally on the two different sides of the island, I think it's a 2-hour train ride, 30 euros.
beautiful.
And then the bus ride, I think it's similar rates, because I took a bus back from Galway to Cork, and I think it was around the same rate. Yeah, so recommendations for Ireland: explore everything that you can. I regret not going to Limerick. I regret not going to Ulster / Belfast / Northern Ireland. I didn't step into Northern Ireland. I wish I kind of did, because I felt kind of incomplete, without going to Northern Ireland. Not to make a statement or anything, but yeah, I felt like I wanted to go there, and I kind of missed out on that. I also missed out on going to Scotland during spring break, or they call it Easter break over there, which is 2 weeks. By the way.
Right.
Kind of a little cultural benefit of a historically Catholic country is that they have 2 weeks off for Easter. So that's kind of nice. Wish we had that over here. But a lot of what the study abroad kids do, and even the Native Native Irish would do this, is they go on vacation, like full-on vacation. And what's really nice about being part of the EU is that's part of something called the Schengen area. You may not be familiar with it, and I don't know the exact definition of the Schengen area, but it basically allows for freedom of travel amongst the EU countries. So on Easter break, and I totally recommend people do this. and it's okay if you want to focus on exploring more of Ireland, but this is what I did. I traveled thanks to the glorious services of Ryanair for only €100 on Easter weekend, literally the weekend of Easter Sunday, to Rome, Italy. And I had nothing but my backpack I have over here. That was my carry-on,
Oh my goodness.
which was tough, but it was so cool. It was so. I have been to Rome before, and it was really nice to be back. I didn't get to go to the Vatican to celebrate Easter Mass, but I did go have Mass on Easter Sunday in Rome, which was really cool. Along with that, and this is something Sean and I are in a class where we talk about different regions of the world. They're outliers.
Shout out Ambassador McMullen.
Shout out
man.
to Ambassador McMullen. But I also visited Croatia there, and in class I went to a little anecdote about what we did there. Nothing bad. I loved Croatia. I went to Split specifically. Wonderful city. That's the place home of Roman Emperor Diocletian's palace, his little summer home, and the Croatian people built a city around it. Super cool infrastructure, and I won't spend too much time because I know this is about Ireland, but I will just say about Croatia. What we did there was super cool. Got to explore Diocletian's palace at night in the rain. It was super fun. Yeah, lovely place, lovely little place in the Balkans. I recommend it. And the plane ride back to Dublin was €20.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So like the same price you would pay for like lunch. It's insane. It's insane. Just wanted to. So I know that's not really specifically about Ireland. So if I want to be a bit more specific about what to expect, kind of get familiar with how the euro works, you don't have to really keep cash on you. They're pretty cashless for the most part. They accept most credit cards. I think like Visa especially.
Yeah, that's. I'll interject this real quick because this applies for pretty much everywhere people are going to end up studying abroad or traveling to. If you have a Visa, you're good, and some other cards, but like MasterCard specifically is not really accepted
Yeah.
everywhere else. So if you have a MasterCard and you're planning on studying abroad, it's probably best practice that you get a different card because more than likely it will not be accepted. Don't know why. That's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, and I got a Discover card, which worked pretty well, ironically, and I'm bringing Croatia back here, because it actually is more widely accepted in Croatia than Ireland, believe it or not, which I thought that was really funny. It just felt so random, but yeah, fun fact.
Yeah, well, I am glad that you shared kind of that advice. And I mean, I think that's a part of the Ireland experience is because anyone I know who has traveled to Ireland or traveled through Ireland, they put me on the Ryanair game. Like
Oh, yeah.
you gotta know the game with Ryanair. And being in the EU helps too. It's like, oh my goodness,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so awesome to travel between places with no passport, no checks, no nothing, and travel is so easy again because it's Europe. We've talked about that so much on this podcast. We're almost at time here, and I'm really sad because there's
No.
so much. There's so much, but Nicholas, I have been so grateful for what you've shared, for what we've been able to talk about. But I want to say I'll structure it as such. You can give us your final thoughts on like Ireland, your program as a whole, just kind of what you learned or what you think people should take away, just in sum, and then talk to us about what you're doing here at the university now and what all you're involved in.
Okay. Yeah. So Ireland was my first international experience, and I close at the beginning here. I'm closing with the beginning of my journey, which was my first time I ever traveled by myself. So it was pretty daunting. I had always traveled with family. It's not like I'm no stranger to flying, but I mean, it was the first time I traveled by myself. So I had to go into the Chicago airport. I had to traverse the London airport, Heathrow, and then get to the Cork airport. And it felt like a really good rite of passage. And this is an era of my life that I will never forget. And I've said this to so many people. It had some of the highest highs of my life, whether that was UCC's hottest and greatest, whether that was the classes, whether that was just the infrastructure, the ancient history of Ireland, these 900-year-old castles that are still standing, whether they're kind of ruins or whether they've been maintained. just absolutely wonderful experiences. This is I wouldn't say once in a lifetime because it shouldn't be. I think it should be the beginning of a lifetime of travel. It inspired me to fully kind of figure out what I want to do in life, and that is to be someone who works in international relations. That is my dream job. My dream job is to be an ambassador to Ireland, actually. That would be ideal. That's kind of what's inspired me. Studying abroad has inspired me to be kind of an international person, so to speak. And that doesn't mean, denouncing your citizenship or something crazy like that, but like being worldly is good. And understanding different cultural experiences is good. Meeting different people, whether it's my good friend from Germany who I met in the last few weeks of my internship. And it's such a shame because we became such good friends, but then we had to say goodbye. But I'm thankful because we still keep in contact. And it's good to just, when you meet these people, stay in contact. That's what I recommend from the bottom of my heart. So, to close, I have 1 semester left. We're halfway through that 1 semester, and it's crazy to think about that my college journey is almost over. I was supposed to graduate last semester, but I was doing an internship in Washington, D.C. And so that's kind of what the future holds for me, is working in Washington, D.C., because I'm going back, thankfully. And I'm hoping to kind of work my way up, and hopefully I'd love to work for the State Department one day. And, another shout out to Ambassador McMullen, because he's also been a big inspiration to me for what I want to do as an adult, as a career. Yeah, in terms of where you could find me, I guess, I'm unfortunately not really part of many, clubs. I guess you could say I frequent the Newman Center often. I talked a little bit about Catholicism and my faith. So if you stop by the Newman Center, there's a good chance you might see me.
But otherwise, you're kind of 1 foot out the door anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing much. I mean, I have a lot of good friends to hang out with. Sean's a good friend. Yeah, sometimes it almost feels like the clubs are the classes. Not to cope, but that's kind of my perspective on things. But yeah.
No, that's great to hear. And I mean, you've got this wonderful experience that's supercharging your future, and those are the kind of perspectives that I want to bring to this, because it happened to me. It happened to myself. I studied abroad, and that puts so much clarity on what I wanted to do and how I'm trying to shape my career and my future plans. So I'm so thankful and grateful that you shared that, and that it really empowered and inspired you to be able to do that. And so for my last thing, give me the one song that defined your study abroad experience. What do you got?
So it's a song called Sons and Daughters by the Decemberists. There's a little, I won't take too much time to explain it, but just really briefly. This is a song, you might know it, it was played in the final season of The Office, in, I think, the episode The Farm, which was like a discarded, backdoor pilot for a Dwight Schrute show. I'm going to assume most listeners have watched The Office, because it's a pretty culturally significant show, and if you haven't, I recommend it, even if it's old. But this is a good song, and it has a very Irish feel to it. And I was listening to it a lot after finishing my second watch through of The Office, and that time coincided with me preparing to go to Ireland. So I was listening to this song a lot on repeat before I was going to go. Ironically, I didn't listen to it much when I was in Ireland proper. I kind of got into a Leve phase. She's great. And Chapel Roan, of course. Sons and Daughters, it's kind of hard to put into words. This song has a very melancholic sentiment to it. It's very, maybe melancholic's the wrong word, maybe nostalgic, longing for the past. And there's a big kind of post-tragic feeling to the song. And in a sense, I feel that in a different way now that I'm back, because it's it's over, and I miss it. And the song really kind of resonates with me in that respect. I really give it a listen. Totally recommend it. Beautiful song, and it's kind of funny how I got it from The Office, but a lot of us find our favorite songs from interesting places.
I was going to say, our study abroad songs come to us in crazy ways. I will definitely give it a listen. I'm sorry, I'm one of those people who hadn't watched The Office because my parents, I was little when it was coming out, and my parents actually weren't really that big of fans of it, so we just didn't grow up watching it. I need to go back and watch it now that I'm an adult, because my cousins and my other relatives are obsessed with it. But I thank you for sharing that, and I will say too, did you know there is an Irish folk singer who's pretty famous named Sean Keane?
No way.
His name is spelled with an A. I have two E's in the middle. His
Right.
is EA.
Yeah.
Because mine's the anglicized version
Sure.
of that. But there is a folk singer named Sean Keane. So if you ever want to get nostalgic about Irish folk music, go put on some Sean Keane, and it'll be a really good time. But
Awesome.
Nicholas, man, this has been such a fun, awesome conversation. I am so glad that you came on and shared and talked about Ireland. I will link, because like Nicholas said, he was a little fuzzy on some of the details about his program. I will link that and everything down below whenever this comes out. But I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank Nicholas once again, and we will see you wherever and whenever in the world next time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me.